Hello class, this is our second video and we're going to be looking at early New World civilizations. We're going to look at 4 in particular today, and these are the early civilizations that were located in North and South America that the Europeans are going to come and conquer, particularly the Portuguese and the Spaniards. The first one that we're going to look at is called the Olmecs. They existed 14 to 500 BC, and when you see BC, that means before Christ, and that's Jesus Christ. We talked about Christianity last week, and he is the savior for Christianity. So whenever you see BC, that means before his existence came. But the Olmecs, they were the first large American civilization. They lived along the Mexican Gulf coast. There was no real cities, but rather villages. So they didn't have big cities like the city of Raleigh. They were like small villages situated throughout the Gulf coast of Mexico. They ruled by a priest class, and they had massive pyramids, which last year you should have learned about that when looking at Egypt and different pyramids that existed. They also had some in the North and South American regions. And when I say they were ruled by a priest, they didn't have a king or a queen. The religious leader led their society. The next one that we're going to be looking at is the Mayans. When I was in elementary school, this was like my favorite group to study. They were founded between 300 to 900 AD, so that means after Christ's death. They centered on the Yucatan Peninsula and Central America. They lived in large cities built around pyramids also, so they also had pyramids. They built roads to support their extensive trade with other people. So even before the Europeans came, they traded with other societies that lived nearby them, and they built their own roads. So they wasn't truly barbarians. Like a lot of times when the Europeans came to these different countries or continents such as Africa, they thought that the individuals or the people that live in there was barbarians and that they needed to settle them, enslave them. And they thought by enslaving the individuals, they were actually helping them because they said they were introducing Christianity to them. But in reality, they just had a different way of life. And it was just different from the Europeans. It doesn't mean they were barbarians. Like the Mayans, they built their own roads. They had some aspect of basically how to run their own society. And we'll look at the different advances that the Mayans and Aztecs made without the Europeans' influence. They ruled by independent kings, but priests were still very powerful. So the Mayans, they did have kings, but again, their religious leader, the priest, they were very powerful in their society. The next early American civilization that we're going to look at is the Aztecs. From 1200 to 1521 after Christ's death, they existed. Now they're going to settle in the Valley of Mexico. They built a new city called Tenochtitlan, which I probably mispronounced that, so I do apologize. But it's now Mexico City. They eventually ruled most of Mexico. They had about 30 million population, so it was a very large society, the Aztecs were. They were ruled by one single emperor who was selected by the priests and nobles. So again, you see that the priests also played a role in leadership. But instead of the priests being the actual leaders, they elected someone to lead the Aztecs, and that person would be called the emperor. The next group is called the Incans, or the Incas, but plural, you add the N to it. They existed 1483 to 1533 AD. They quickly came to rule nearly the entire Pacific coast of South America. They ruled by Sapa Inca, which stands for emperor, whom the Inca believed was a god. So if you were an emperor of the Incans, then they considered you to be a god, and they worshipped you as that. He was the political and religious leader. They owned everything and everyone. So the emperor basically controlled every aspect. It'd be similar to what we would call today a dictatorship. They also had excellent road system and trained army. Although they had a trained army, it's not going to be that trained that is going to prevent the Europeans from taking over that whole area. But I do want to point out some advances that the Mayans and Aztecs had. The Mayans, they developed a system of hieroglyphics similar to what they used in Egypt. And hieroglyphics is a writing system. Y'all should have learned this either in 6th grade or in elementary school. They also made books from bark, and this is tree bark. They were highly accurate with their calendar, and their calendar included 365 days, which that's what we use today. They had advanced mathematical calculations. They had an elaborate trade network with neighbor civilizations. So looking at this information right here, the Mayans really were not barbarians like the Europeans said they were. The Europeans say, well, it's our burden. We need to civilize them. We need to help them. We need to introduce them to Christianity. Advances for the Aztecs. They had a formal schools for the sons of nobles. So they also had a school system set up. They have further developed the Mayans' calendar. So they based their calendar off of the Mayans, but they made it better. They had advanced mathematics also. They had advanced medicine. They had advanced building techniques, and an example of an advanced building technique, like they knew how to build bridges, canals, and pyramids. And to me, or to you, it really doesn't sound like they were barbarians. However, what comes up must come down, and a lot of civilizations are like that. The Mayans, they were very popular during their time, but they are going to see a decline. They're going to collapse. It's unknown why the Mayans collapsed. Like, nobody really knows what happened to them. It said that around 900 BC, and this is before Christ, the people are going to abandon their cities. And they're saying that maybe this was due to the excessive wars in that area or the extreme drought that was brought to that area. So the Europeans really did not play a role in the Mayans' decline, but they are going to play a role in the Aztecs' decline. The Aztecs, they thought the Spanish were gods because they didn't have the same technology that the Spanish had. You got to keep in mind, they're coming from across the world. They see these people come off these ships that are floating on water. They had yet to develop that technology. So they thought they were gods. They had different weapons. They had more advanced weapons than the Aztecs had, so they respected them. They allowed Hernan Cortez into the capital. When Hernan Cortez went to the capital, he did betray the Aztecs. They acted nice to him at first, and then the Spaniards are going to betray them. Specifically Cortez. He's going to betray the hospitality of the Aztec emperor and conquer the city in 1521. So this city is going to fall to Spain. And a lot of these early civilizations, if they didn't fall on their own, are going to fall because of the Europeans coming to that area. They're either going to enslave them or they're going to die from the different diseases that they have been exposed to by the Europeans, such as smallpox. Is going to kill a large majority of the native, well, not Native Americans, because that's North America, but in Southern America, the people that lived in that area, a lot of them are going to die from smallpox. And that's it with today's lesson.